Okay, so my pattern for today is a basic pattern for chum salmon that I came across on searching the internet. Uh, Apparently, this was a pattern that was used in Puget Sound a fair bit, so we'll presume it's going to work here. Um, so basically, it's a very simple pattern that takes one hook, and I'm going to tie it on a little bit bigger than hook than what I had suggested. It's the one I've got now is a TMC 2312 is the ones that I've been tying the samples on. This one's a little bit bigger. This is a 6, so you can see a little better. The ones I've been tying on, this one here is on an 8, and it's about a 3x long. So we'll get the hook in the vise, and of course, the first thing you want to do is to get the barb off the hook. So I'll pinch that down because they're chums we're fishing for, and you want to be able to release them without too much damage. So this is the 2312 hook, which is about 3x long, and it's got a bit of a curve to it. So the next item, and I'm going to have to make sure I sit back so that the face following feature does not highlight my face and not the fly. So the first thing is thread, and I'm using a chartreuse 6/0 as a basic thread, and I'm going to start right a little bit behind the eye of the hook. I'm going to cover the shank. And the reason for covering the shank is to make sure that the material that I make the body out of doesn't slide around too much. And I'm going to run that right down to where the barb was and trim off the excess. Now the tail and the body of this fly is diamond braid. And the purpose of that is that the diamond braid has, it doesn't fray, it sticks together when you put it on. It doesn't fray out at the ends. And it's kind of stiff enough that if you're tying on an extended body, which this is, it'll stick out the back a bit and hold its place. And so when I'm doing that, what I'm going to do is I'll tie that in right at the back of the hook. Over top, keeping it tied right smack on top of the hook. And make sure that it points straight back. So I make sure I've got a good fix. And then I'm going to do a quick little wrap underneath to keep the tail from collapsing when I get on front here. And I'll bring my thread right up to, I'd say, about 3 or 4 eye lengths back of the eye of the hook. Now I'm going to give the braid just a teeny twist, and then I'll wrap it forward in touching turns up the shank of the hook. And I don't need to pull it very tight. I want a little bit of bulk in the body. And I'll wrap that up till I get to where the thread is hanging. And then I'm going to hold up here and wrap it down on top of that. Cinch it off. Get a couple of wraps in front. And trim. So that's the tail and body of the hook in one shot, which is convenient. It makes it quick to tie these. And while I'm tying in chartreuse, the web page that I was on also said you can use Orange, fluorescent orange will help too, will work as well. So now I've got the body part or the collar part is semi-seal or pseudo seal. So it's artificial seal fur. This, I think the pseudo seal would be, is a little bit more chopped up. The semi-seal, I think, is a little bit longer strands. So I pulled some strands of this out of the bag. And then what I've done is kind of stretched it out and gotten rid of the really short fibers. And I'm going to end up with a small clump of this stuff. And I'm going to tie some of it on top of the hook, like that. Just a quick wrap on top to make it sit on top. And then I'm going to pull it back and wrap in front of that. Turn the hook over and take a similar amount of the seal and sort of stretch it out so what I've got is the long strands. Discard the really short stuff. And I'll do another one underneath, getting the tag end of that right to where the point of the hook is. And again, do a quick wrap over the top, pull the semi-seal back, and a couple of wraps on there. So what you're doing is you're creating a bit of a body form here that's going to shroud the hook a bit. Mm-hmm. Then when I got that, I need a wing. And so the wing is this stuff, crystal flash. There's the whole thing. And I don't need a whole pile of this, but I'm going to do the same basic principle. I'm going to take a few strands that I'm going to tie on top, and I'll cut those so that I can tie them in so they extend back to where the tail is. And just trim it short. Lay that down on right behind the eye and cinch that stuff down with a couple of good wraps. And then turn it over and do the same thing again. I don't need a whole whack of strands of this. It's just going to give it a bit of body shape. And again, measure to the back of the hook, extend to where the tail is, set it down on top, cinch it down. So now you have a top and a bottom of crystal flash. Wrap in front, cinch it down, trim nice and snug. Get the bits and pieces out of the way. There's a few strands there that I need to trim. And so now I've got that. It's a little bit long, so I'm going to take my scissors and just trim it back a hair, the stuff that's sticking on, so that it's a nice sort of a V-shaped body. Trim off the excess here, and then build a nice, neat little head, and do a whip finish. Off. And then I'm going to take my head cement after I clean up all the little straggly bits of crystal ash that are sticking out here. There's a few little bits that'll get in the way if I don't. And then I'm going to put some head cement on there. And just to make sure the eye is clear. Get my bobbin and just make sure that I poke the stuff out of the eye so that I can get the line through when I go to tie it on. And that's pretty much it. Got a little flash, little bulk to it. And when you strip that, it's going to, every time you strip, it's going to collapse a little bit and spring back out a bit. Because the material, the crystal flash is fairly stiff. So it will play around in the water a bit. So that's him. Very quick and dirty fly.
Nice. Very nice. Is green, I mean, this shade of green sort of the a good color for chum as a standard?
That was the color that the pattern that I looked up was this chartreuse.
Oh, okay.
He did mention that you can use contrasting colors, and I would be interested maybe in doing a mix of that and maybe throwing some orange in there, some fluorescent orange.
Mm-hmm.
Something to make it a bit more attractive. So maybe you do the body in green and
Yeah.
do the crystal flash in orange. So anyway, that's him. Nice.
Or do it in pink, because last year the
Or
chums
pink, yeah.
were taking pink.
Yeah, pink would probably be good as well. So I think it's worth doing some experiments in different colors.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure you, and again, this is the pseudo seal, which you can get if you get the semi seal or semi seal. It has a little longer fiber, so it's a little easier to manage. This stuff I take little clumps out and use my comb and try and comb them out, so I've got a little bit longer strands.
Mm-hmm.
The other thought was when we were talking today about you could put a feather on the side of those.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be interesting to try.
No, I got it.
It would add a little bit of motion to the fly because the other fibers are all pretty stiff.
Yeah.
So that it might add a little more movement to the fly if you added something and it had a little bit of flex to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's him.
Okay, good.
Anyway, it's worth a try.
Is that for the river or the beach
I think either
or
one.
both?
And I'd be really because it's a cutthroat fly. Most of the time, I think you're going to be fishing on the mouths of the river or on the beach. And and again, the pattern I found on a Portland website. I think it was Portland. So this was intended for fishing in on the peninsula primarily and in Puget Sound. But I don't see why it wouldn't work here. But,
Yep.
you know, cutthroat or cutthroat, they move around, and I think the guys in Puget Sound probably have a lot more experience fishing cutthroat than what we do here. So that's him.
So Dave, now you got me a little slightly confused. In the email, you said that this is a chum fly.
Yeah, sorry, chum. Yeah, it is chum fly primarily, but I think they fish it in the same area where the chum are coming in and the cutthroat are around.
Okay, so
Or are they
fish
referring to
both
it as a
kind of
chum fry?
No, it was a fly for chum, yes. But I have a
was for
feeling that
chum,
it would
okay.
work for sea-run cutties as well. That's probably where I would try it more than anything is fish when the sea runs are around.
Mhm.
I think it'd be worth a go anyway, either way.
Hmm.
It's got that general saltwater attractiveness. Okay.
Mhm.
You have a very interesting fly there, so Lauren. So
This is
now I can let me see if I can spotlight you or make you co-host.
you don't have to because I'm
No, I
sharing
think
the
you're okay. Yeah,
screen and
you're probably okay.
you should all be able to see the fly.
Yep.
I mean the vice right now.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, your setup's a little better than mine in terms of software.
right. So as long as I can still use the old software, and then it's
Yeah.
probably gonna be the end of it. Okay, streamer fly, heavy wire 6 size. Ring
Mhm.
eye might be preferred if you have it, but I was just looking for the right kind of hook, a bit larger, and that's the only stuff that I had. Anyway, just plain black thread, and then you can leave the shank there. That's perfectly okay if you are averse to that sort of thing and you think the shank should have something on it. You can just add some material. So here I have some sparkly kind of yarn that's pinkish in color. So I'm just going to take and wrap that on. I missed a turn there, so I'm just going to go back. Work my way around the point of the hook, which is likely to, it's not going to cut this stuff. It's pretty strong, but it's definitely going to be fraying it. Okay, so I need to leave myself enough room to put things here at the head of the fly. I'm going to stop a fair bit behind the eye of the hook. Okay, now I'm going to tie this fly upside down, so I have to think a little bit about what goes where. So things are going to go like this. This is going to be the belly of the fly. So I think I'm going to put the flash on here. And I'll start with the blue, so I have it closer to the center of the fly. So I'll have a little bit of blue flash here. So this is very limp stuff. This is this flash in a tube material, which is very nice because it's extremely soft. And I have the feathers are pre-cut to length, so I can gauge here how much flash do I really need. That's about to here. I'm trying to have the flash not go beyond the tip of the feathers. That's kind of the idea. Here. Trim. And then a little bit, I find that is a nice little flashy accent. This is this classic Flashaboo, the Mirage in the opal variety. That gives a lot of different colors depending on how the light hits it. It's really nice stuff, I find. And it's again very, very, very soft. Maybe not as soft running as the other stuff that I just put on, but it's still pretty soft. So again, fold it and then hook it on the shank of the hook, tie it on, and then trim to size. As you can see, this is just a bit stiffer. Okay. Okay, so done with the flash. Now I'm going to turn the fly over and I'm going to put something stiffer here at the center of the fly, so I'm going to use a bit of bucktail. And this is going to be the back of the fly. So here I can have something. I'm trying to select here because I have choices of more white or a bit darker, but I think a little bit darker or mixed is not a bad choice. There we go. It's a bit of bucktail. Again, the temptation is to use too much, and I have to resist that temptation. And I'm not going to put it, again, I have to make sure that it's not too long. And put it on top here and try to secure it with a few turns of thread. It actually wraps around the shank just a little bit. You don't want it to fully wrap around the shank, you just want maybe a little. And then trim the extra bits and then cover up everything with thread. Okay, that's gonna be nice and solid. So here's the fly. Everything seems to be in place. Now it's time to put on the feather wings. The feather wings go on the sides. What I did is I prepared the wing as follows. First, I chose a hackle of the appropriate length to start with. Then I cut off the bed bits at the bottom of the hackle. And then I trimmed, so I cut both hackles to the exact same length. I aligned the tips and then cut them to the exact same length. And then I trimmed the stem there a little bit. As you can see, I left a little bit of feather, a little bit of the barbs on the hackle so that there's something for the thread to properly grab on. And the last thing I did is I took my debarb pliers, which are flat, not serrated jaws. I crimped this flat so that when I tie it on, it's as easy as possible to have it lie flat exactly where I want it to lie flat. So let's see if all this theory of mine actually works. I'm gonna put this on. So I pre-cut this so that when I put the feather on, as you can see, I align the tip of the stem of this hackle with the eye of the hook. So all the way to the eye of the hook. And whoops. Take your time if you haven't done this before, and even if you did. Okay. Allow for the possibility of thread torque. Do a few turns just to have the feather in place. Look at it, see if you're satisfied with its placement. And if the answer to that is yes, go ahead and properly secure the feather. And then take the second one, the matching pair, and attach it to the other side, same way. Line up to the, right up to the eye of the hook. I choose the curvature of the feather so that the tips point inward. Things are gonna get a little bit moving all over the place when it's in the water. And I find that this is a little better. Otherwise, the fly just kind of opens up too much and then it rotates when you cast it and so on and so forth. So this seems to be okay. So I've got all that other material is pretty much encased by the wings. As you can see, the whole thing is going to streamline to a very thin thing when you pull it through the water. So it is very kind of fishy looking in some way. Okay, and now you can do this in several ways. I'd like to put a bit of a hot collar here, and I have two materials. One is a polar chenille, and the other one is some really hot pink crystal flash. So either way, well, there's a difference. If I do the polar chenille, I put that first, and then I tie on the eyes. Otherwise, if I use the crystal flash, I tie on the eyes, and then I put on the crystal flash. So let's try, this is gonna be the slightly more challenging thing. So let's show this, see if I can pull it off. So unlike the standard procedure of, you know, tie your hourglass eyes first, and then tie the rest of the flies, I like to put them at the end, because what happens is if you do the feather wings and all of this stuff, you're gonna run into the eyes, and it's gonna be almost impossible to tie the fly.
Yeah.
No.
So unlike a Clouser minnow, this is, you know, this is not gonna work following that procedure. Okay, this is a bit challenging because this is very kind of crinkly. And so it's a bit hard to properly fold back. You want an accent here, not an awful lot, but it does take a few turns of this stuff. It's pretty sparse as it is. If you use, for example, crosscut bunny is a good color material. There is just, you know, one proper full turn and you're done. You've got enough color there and enough material to give you what you want. Okay, so now, of course, the challenge is to secure this without catching too many of the fibers in the process. A couple of turns over the core, and pull back the whole thing, catch all the fibers, secure, and then finally trim. Okay. Really not much was lost in this process. Oh, now this looks awful when it's dry, but when it's wet, it all kind of goes and sticks to the feathers, so it's pretty good. All right, and now this is actually the hardest part of tying this fly, just putting on the dumbbells. I'm gonna bring the thread right back here to the base, and the other challenge is that you've already built up the thickness a little bit. So it's a lot easier to tie these things down on their shank than it is to do it on top of an already tied fly, but can be done with a bit of effort. So then just cross thread this properly. Okay. And sometimes you want to move these eyes a little bit and then, ouch, the sharp hooks. Let's see, is it straight? That's the main thing. Don't want to have this imbalanced. Okay, so this is going to be the fly. There's no room here to add any more embellishment, so we're just going to stop here. If you skip the eyes, you can build another head with some green crystal flashes. I think the picture of the fly I posted had that feature, or you can do something else, whatever, whichever way you like to finish the head of the fly. You can go a little bit sparser than what I did here. Definitely not any more than I did here. And here, a little bit of head cement, even after doing a double whip finish, is not a bad idea. Provided I can find where the head cement is. Oh, yeah. So Sally Hansen to the rescue. What happens here is the threads around the eyes are pretty exposed. Well, see, that was bad. I have to do a bit of cleanup afterwards. Anyway, I got a big drop there that came down. It didn't come in a bad spot, so that's okay. And just turn it around, let it flow around, but it definitely covered up the eye of the hook. So when that happens, you do have a little trash can, right, on the tying table. So you go and rummage in that trash can and you retrieve the valuable cleanup device. Let's see, strips of fluff. This tackle stems are really good for cleaning guys. Hooks, when little accidents like that happen. And if there is a higher quantity, more stubborn, whatever, if it's really bad, then just pull the whole thing through.
Yeah.
And that'll do. Okay, well, let it dry and take it out on the water. And then hopefully I will be able to report sooner rather than later on field testing this fly and whether it worked or not. And by the way, this is the Canadian-made vise I'm tying on. The only Canadian-made vise in my my little collection.
There you go.
What
If you,
brand is it?
I'm sorry?
What brand of ice is it?
I think it's a one-man operation out of Quebec.
Ah.
It's called a Kype vise.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy up the road from you at Nile Creek sells these.
Ah, I'll have to take a look.
Yep.
go,
Take a look and tell him I sent you there and that he should maybe just mail me that tube fly attachment because I don't drive up there anytime soon. Anyway,
Why, do you need a tube fly attachment for it?
it came with it and I was in the shop and I just took the vise and the guy said, yeah, the tube fly attachment happens to be out in Campbell River and I'll get it for you. But yeah. Anyway, what's nice about it, I mean, it's a pretty standard rotary stuff. But the jaws are a neat design, you know, this fish thing.
Yeah.
And the jaws of the fish, so the kype of the salmon here, they do serve a purpose because this is like those jaw systems where you've got two attachment points for the hook.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Right, so you're
Doesn't bend too hard on the hook.
yeah, and the other thing is that it doesn't, you know, if this were a solid piece of metal, the holding of the hook I find is not as good as if you have it,
Yeah.
you know, pinched
Right.
in two places. Anyway,
Mhm.
but it's just kind of nice, and I was like, yeah, why don't I have a Canadian vise? Well, now I do.
Mm.
So that's it. That's the fly. For a change, this was a complicated pattern, and Dave did the simple one. But
So
you
you
know,
get-
you can drop various components of this. The only thing I'd say don't give up on is the feathers. I haven't
Mhm.
had the nerve to simply take a bear hook and two feathers and see if actually that works. Maybe I should do that before I go to the lake
Mhm.
and test it out.
No, it was an interesting fly,
Yeah,
Lauren, that was good.
so you should probably put the host back to me, and I will stop the recording.
And,
Well, you can, yeah, I should have remembered to stop the recording earlier.
and Florent,